So it just came out that the Ontario Provincial Police have said that they are not going to be participating in the government's program to take guns away from law-abiding owners. We've got the facts on our side because the cops who actually do this for a living, try and make Canadians safer, are like, it's not even worth us participating in this program because we know it's going to do nothing.
This is the Western Roundup, a spin-off show of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation podcast, where we are still fighting for lower taxes, less waste, and more accountable government, but with more of a Western-style spin to this. Now, I know you want this shirt, but in the Saskatchewan version, and I got this shirt. It was actually from the Rebel table at the Canada Strong and Free conference that we were all having. So we all had our merch table set up, and I got this shirt because I love Alberta, and I think it's awesome. They do have Saskatchewan one for you rectangle people.
Yeah, so we're not being excluded.
You are not being excluded. We're including the rectangle people. So my name is Kris Sims. I'm the Alberta director for the Taxpayers Federation. I'm here with my good friend Gage, who is the Prairie director for the Taxpayers Federation. He is located in Saskatchewan. Usually we have our partner in crime, Carson Binda. He's the BC director, but he's off vacationing somewhere. So it's just Gage and I right now. We're going to have a quick update for you at the end of this show about the BC budget. But Gage, we've been texting all week because there's so much happening on the whole fight over whether or not we're going to have our firearms confiscated in Canada. Can you just give our listeners an update? What is happening with the so-called gun buyback program as of right now?
Yeah. So Ottawa's gun confiscation scheme is falling apart, essentially. And it's been falling apart for a long time, but now the cracks are starting to shine all the way through. From the beginning, people like us at the Taxpayers Federation have been talking about how this program is a huge waste of money. We've seen police unions and professors talk about how it's not actually going to do anything to stop crime. And now it seems that all of those facts together are kind of hammering down on the government on this one. So it just came out that the Ontario Provincial Police have said that they are not going to be participating in the government's program to take guns away from law-abiding owners. And that's just another of the long list of people who said they're not going to be participating already. We've got Alberta saying that they're going to do their best to make sure that guns aren't taken from firearm owners. Saskatchewan's doing a similar thing. And now Ontario's provincial police force is also joining that fray. And it seems to have left the public safety minister, who's in charge of this program, a little bit dumbfounded. I know we've got a clip that he had from some reporters where essentially he can't answer any of their questions.
Yeah. Okay. So once again, this is the public safety minister. This is in, what we would often call a parliament. Okay. It's technically in the West Block building. It's a round question period. And the press gallery has cornered the public safety minister saying, hey, the biggest provincial police force in Canada, the OPP, just said they're not going along with this. And this is his answer. Listen to this.
Why is the buyback program? Who's going to collect guns in Ontario? There is no deal yet, as far as we know. How are the guns going to be collected in the province of Ontario?
More information will be forthcoming as we announce the program. I'm very confident that we will have collection facilities available in Ontario. We will have police of jurisdiction. Many of them have already signed on. So I'm very confident that we will have a robust collection ability to collect guns in
Did
Ontario.
the OPP refuse to participate in the program?
Well, the OPP has indicated that they will not participate directly. As you know, they represent 26% of the overall policing in Ontario. This doesn't mean that we can't continue with the gun buyback program.
Yeah, that was not a good answer. Just to translate, he's saying basically, I don't know. And I don't know what we're going to do about the fact that I don't know. So him saying that they're not going to be, how did they put that? Directly involved? Like the OPP won't be directly involved? Okay, little pro tip. Police aren't indirectly involved in stuff. Okay, by their very nature of their job, they're the guys knocking on your door or pulling over your car. They are direct sort of people. So there's no indirectly stuff going on here. Gage, I was thrilled, frankly, when I heard the OPP join the ranks of, like you said, Scott Moe and Daniel Smith and others who were saying, you know what, this is not a good use of our time and resources. Were you happy to hear this?
Yeah, it's a great step in the right direction. It kind of shows that us who are fighting against this thing because it's a waste of money, because it's not going to do anything, we've got the facts on our side. Because the cops who actually do this for a living, try and make Canadians safer, are like, it's not even worth us participating in this program because we know it's going to do nothing. And there's a statement from the Ontario government that was very similar, where they just said, Ontario Police Services do not have the resources to attend residential addresses to confiscate previously lawful but now prohibited firearms.
That is so well said. And for folks who've only ever lived out west out here, I lived in Ottawa, I've lived all over Canada. So the OPP is the Ontario Provincial Police. Ontario has its own provincial police force. So where some of us in different parts of Western Canada might be more used to in small towns having RCMP, in Ontario, it's the OPP. Okay. Yes, they have some municipal police forces. So obviously Toronto, Ottawa, places like that. But if you're driving around, like if you're on the highway and you're driving between like Wawa and Thunder Bay, you're going to see OPP. So they're a huge provincial police force. And now them saying, no, we have better things to do in North Bay than to go harass law-abiding firearms owners. We're not going to be participating in this. I think it's a pretty significant step. Can you go over some of the costs again? Because some of our viewers and listeners may not realize how much this is already costing taxpayers, even though the confiscation hasn't really rolled ahead in a significant way.
Yeah, so originally the government in 2019, they decided they had this bright idea to do nothing, essentially. And they said that buying back guns from lawful firearms owners would cost $200 million. And then we got a report from the parliamentary budget officer who said, no, actually, just to buy back the guns is going to be at least $756 million. But then that number is just to get the guns. That doesn't include all the administration, which now seems is going to be even more blown up if the police aren't involved in this sort of thing. And we've seen the other experts who have said that the total cost could be more than $6 billion. And I know you've made the comparison before, the old federal long gun registry, which is not nearly as wide-reaching as a program as this, ended up costing the government $2 billion when they said it was going to cost $2 million. So we're looking at cost overruns all over the place here. And that's why, as the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we're like, hey, cut it out, government, because we can't afford this kind of thing, especially for a program that will do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely nothing, except for really put some small businesses out of business already. So keep in mind, so for folks who don't realize, say you own one of these firearms, okay? And I have to stress, for folks who somehow stumbled upon this podcast or this show who thinks that like automatic weapons like you see in the Rambo movies are legal in Canada, no, they're not, okay? Full auto has been outlawed in Canada since I think it was the early 70s, okay? It was in the 70s, okay? That is not the case. In many of these cases, these firearms, okay, you were giving an example last time, Gage, of a 22. Like a 22, what we would call a plinker, like one that we use for pop cans and gophers, has been made illegal as well, correct?
No, yeah. It's so frustrating just because it's made out of black and tan plastic, but it is a 22, one of the smallest calibers that you can buy a firearm in, probably the second smallest, I guess, if you want to get technical. But because it's clad in that black and tan plastic, the government has decided that it's scary enough that now it's illegal to own.
For folks who are trying to understand this, what the government has basically done is they've now retroactively suddenly decided that all of a sudden some of these firearms, which have been legally purchased by licensed registered firearms owners who have gone through safety courses, now they're like, oh, no, backsies. You can't actually own these, but we don't know what we're doing yet. So just hang on to them. So these firearms have been sitting in gun safes now for, has it been 5 years already?
Yeah, 5 years in last May.
Wild. So you can't use it, you can't take it to the range, you can't trade it, and you can't sell it. So for firearms owners, that is super annoying. But for some of the businesses, I feel so bad for some of these small business hunting places because they've had to hang on to this stock that's been frozen now. And they haven't even, I don't even know if they've even gotten any compensation yet. Do you know?
So they have submitted some from
Okay.
businesses and stuff, but none for individual firearms owners. But I think your point here kind of gets back to the overall point about why this program is nonsensical. Because as you mentioned, these guns were all legally purchased before, and then after the ban, you weren't allowed to use them, you weren't allowed to take them out of your safe. So essentially, they're completely banned. There's nothing that can be done with them. But during that time, since the original ban and all the subsequent bans afterwards, gun crime in Canada has gone up, right? So there's more crimes being committed, more violent firearm crimes than before the ban. So what the government's doing here isn't working. And then in countries like New Zealand, where we've seen the government actually participate in a confiscation slash buyback program, gun crime went up after they actually completed the thing, and we haven't even done that yet. So that's the other main point here. I think that's why these police forces are saying, don't make us waste time on this. We've got important stuff to do, because they know it's not going to work.
Yeah, and not to put too long of a point on it here with the cost. We don't have the money for this, folks.
Mhm.
Okay? It's not as if we're rolling around and there's money blocking up our streets. The opposite. We're $1.2 trillion in debt. Like what we're wasting on just the debt interest payments alone is $1 billion a week. A week. Like picture a brand new shiny hospital that just got built and there is nobody in it yet. Burn it down. Because it costs about $1 billion to build a hospital. Burn one down every single week. So we have unmoney. Like we don't have the money for silly things like this that is only going to criminalize law-abiding gun owners. I needed to update y'all too because Gage and I were talking about this earlier this week. And remember how it sounded like the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, was confused when he was talking on the Ryan Jesperson show? In fact, I'm going to play the clip again, Gage, because it was so interesting. So keep in mind everything Gage and I just said, okay? So for 5 years now, firearms owners have been told, don't touch them, don't make eye contact with them, don't trade them, don't sell them, don't use them, keep them in your safe, keep them in your safe. We're going to confiscate them soon and give you some money back. That's all that they've been told this entire time. Then Carney comes out here for his cabinet retreat before the House of Commons came back, and he goes on the Ryan Jesperson show, which is a podcast. And then he uses the V word. He said that this is voluntary. You got to listen to it from his own mouth. Listen to this.
What do you intend to do on the firearms file specifically? And what do you make of Premier Smith's position?
I'm not going to, the exact quote, maybe I'll leave the quote aside, but I'll pick up one word there, confiscation. This is not about confiscation. This is about voluntary return of firearms for compensation, compensation of these firearms, and we'll run a process. Look, we'll have different processes in different provinces. I respect the decision of the province of Alberta and in their areas of jurisdiction, but this process will unroll. Canadians will have the
Alberta's premier's mischaracterizing the situation, right?
Well. Look, I didn't see the exact quote. You give my briefing maybe greater credit than it is. We're not confiscating guns. People aren't going around confiscating guns. That is anyone who says that is a mischaracterization. What it is an opportunity for Canadians to return guns for compensation. And let's be clear. We are not talking about hunting rifles. We're not talking or sport shooting or anything like that. We're talking about assault rifles. We are talking about weapons of, serious weapons, let's put it that way.
Okay, so once again, that was from a few days back, okay, before the House got sat back down. That was Mark Carney calling it voluntary, which had all of us guessing. Remember in the last show here on Western Roundup, we're like, what does he mean? I don't know. Like, this is strange. We've never heard this before. One of the hopes we were holding out, right, Gage, is that this might mean that they were going to allow maybe grandfathering. Can you explain in context what grandfathering would have meant in this situation as far as, the firearms rights people were concerned?
Yeah, so it's always more difficult in practice to actually get grandfathering done. But essentially what it amounts to is that the government makes a new law and the gun that you owned previously legally is now illegal because of this new regulation or law. But instead of the government taking it from you, they just say, well, because you already had it, you can keep it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the gist of it. And that's what some people have been pushing for in terms of this gun confiscation. But we now know that that's not what Carney meant. It's more that he just didn't know what he was talking about from information we now have.
Yeah, it was worse. And again, with the grandfathering, it would be like you can keep it and use it, but you can't like sell it and pass it down. So
Right.
it would have stopped with you. But that's kind of, at least I'll speak for myself. That's what I was hoping they were talking about, because then that would have at least made the people who already possess these firearms feel better. It would still screw over the small businesses, but at least it would have allowed for the people who own them and possess them to continue using them safely.
And waste
But
less
no,
money.
yes, exactly. But it costs less money, exactly, because you're not having to compensate people for stuff you're taking from them. But it's worse because it's government. So I'm actually just going to read it off the screen here, and I'm going to pull it up here. So remember how he said voluntary? That was the big change word here. Quote, this is from City News. The government says the gun buyback program is itself voluntary. But if gun owners own firearms that they legally obtained and are now prohibited, they are expected to, quote, dispose of their prohibited assault-style firearms and devices or ensure they are deactivated. What that means, after I thought about it real hard, is the buyback program is voluntary. Meaning, we won't force you to take money for your destroyed and now illegal property. You can opt in or out of the money. That's the voluntary part. Like, Gage, this was the worst answer that I don't even know if we imagined it last time.
No, I don't think that was one of any of the scenarios that we came up with. And it kind of just adds to the overall confusion, the overall bureaucratic horror that this program has become. And we go back to that clip of the public safety minister, where essentially, in much more fancy words, he said, "I don't know," 3 times to the reporters. I think as taxpayers, the advice we have to the government is the same we've had the whole time. Guys, this is too expensive. It's not going to make anyone safer. So just quit while you're behind and scrap the whole confiscation altogether. I don't think that any firearms owner would accuse the public safety minister of flip-flopping or the government of flip-flopping for doing the right thing here and realizing this is a wasteful program and it needs to end.
They can't flip-flop on something they don't understand in the first place. Like, they're like a child who's wandered into a movie theater here. They don't know where they are or what they're doing. So it'd be best, like you said, quit while you're behind. Save everybody some money and a lot of headache. Do you want to switch gears here? Can I do a quick update on BC's numbers here while Carson's away?
Yeah, sure. What's going on the West Coast?
So I'm born and raised in BC. I was BC director before Carson. I am so tempted right now to just make stuff up while Carson is away. Like, the premier changed hands and there's a whole thing, but I'm not going to because I believe in facts. Okay, so British Columbia, they had their quarterly update. Basically what that means is it's a budget update. So everybody comes out with their big provincial budgets in February, March. And then throughout the year, the finance ministers trot out and they give us like fiscal updates, okay? It's important to know this kind of stuff because it matters for taxpayers, people who want to do business in the province, credit rating agencies, all that stuff. So it's really bad news. So British Columbia, before the announcement, had a debt of $133 billion. $133 billion debt in British Columbia, okay? At the fiscal update, $155 billion. That's an increase of 16%. It is an astonishing amount of money. It's costing taxpayers in British Columbia billions of dollars every year just on the debt interest payments. I'm going to put my foot down real hard here as somebody who is a British Columbian. They have got zero excuse to be running any sort of deficit. Okay. It's bad enough if a province is running a deficit when they're like landlocked and they don't really have any natural resources and it's tough for them to get stuff out to market, whatever, come up with a reason. British Columbia, they're literally sitting on gold mines with an entire coastline full of ports to ship their stuff over the, like, it makes no sense that they ever run a deficit, let alone pile up $155 billion in debt. Second, another number that jumped out at me, and I know Carson's going to jump on this as soon as he comes back from his trip, they're full-time employees.
Yeah.
Did you see that number?
No. Where'd they go? Too high, I imagine, but how high?
Oh my gosh, it's skyrocketed. it jumped off the page at me. So back in the day, 2018, 2019, they had about 36,000 government workers, like they call them FTEs in nerd world, full-time equivalents. They had about 36,000 BC government workers. Now, 48,757. That is a 34% increase. Oh, I know.
And what
Over
are
the
they
last,
doing?
I don't know.
That's always the problem when you see this, even at the federal level, when Franco talks about it. It's always so confusing. And they're like, there's this many people that work at the government. You're like, okay, well, the government does something. They build roads and all this kind of stuff happens. And you see a couple years later, they've hired 34% more people, as in the BC case. I've talked to Carson about his dealings with the government, even in his personal life. I don't think he's seen services have gotten anywhere close to a third better. So it's like they're just paying these people. They're not doing anything, and it's costing taxpayers.
Gage, somebody has to write out those grant applications for, what was it? Wood leather soccer balls? Like, come on. That's a real thing, folks. That's a real thing. Premier David Eby has a picture of himself next to a soccer ball that looks like it's made out of like flooring, and it's a wood leather soccer ball. They wasted taxpayers' money on it. Frankly, if they spent $1 on it, it's a waste. The point here is British Columbia, you're going in the wrong direction, like big time. Like they have got to do a serious house cleaning there. They have to get back to the very, very, very basics of government. Okay. Cut everything else. They have to balance their budget. They have to stop piling on the debt. I just wanted to give people some of those headline numbers. I know Carson's going to come roaring back on this stuff, but I wanted that out there because the update happened while he was away. Gage, we want to close off with encouraging people then on how to sign up to fight against the firearms confiscation.
Yeah, so it looks like the gun confiscation is kind of falling apart. We're seeing police officers step up. We're seeing all these organizations like ours talk about how awful it is. But that the next step on that is keeping on the pressure on the government to actually finally get the win and not have people's firearms taken, not have all this money wasted. And the first step that you're listening to this is you can head on over to taxpayer.com and sign our petition to scrap the gun ban and buyback from the government. And then when we're doing something next to try and push the government to get this thing gone, you'll be the first one to know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gage. And folks, thank you so much for watching and listening. It's important to us when you make it a part of your day. We know there's lots of shows that you can be listening to out there. If you're watching this on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe to this video and to this channel. And be sure to share this show with people who need to know.